live on a Wednesday. It's the 9th of April. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens lunch hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside Sarah Ellison. We've got a jam-packed show coming up for you, including a featured guest. He's a friend of the show. He's a key member of the Ravens Twitter community, Jason Smith from Huddle It Up Films. He's going to give us some insights into his Ravens-centric annual big board as we take a look at the NFL draft, which, by the way, if you were counting, is 2 weeks from tomorrow. So that's going to come up rather quickly. What we'll begin with today, though, Sarah, is ESPN insider Adam Schefter sharing some thoughts and dishing on what he feels like the Ravens draft day plans could be, including a big move that wouldn't necessarily be surprising, but would be telling on day 3. Also had some comments on Mark Andrews. We'll take a look at the latest prospect visit that's set to take place this week in Baltimore. We'll also revisit yesterday's conversation as promised when it comes to the history of the compensatory pick formula for the Ravens. We know that's a philosophy of theirs this time of year. And am I missing anything? We got a lot to get to.
We got a lot to get to. I'm looking forward to talking to Jason from Huddle It Up Films. I want that Ravens-centric kind of take on the Ravens draft from somebody who has watched film on everybody. I'm very curious how many prospects he's watched tape on. I mean, it's been like 50, 60, 70 in the past, something crazy like that, where he watches all the plays. So looking forward to him at the 12:40 mark. But until then, yes, Adam Schefter did speak with the Baltimore Sun's Brian Wacker. And he kind of gave his take on a few things. It's not like the Ravens are picking in the top 10, so it makes it a little bit harder. And so I think maybe we'll just begin right here where he says the Ravens could potentially, Bobby, be the day 3, so talking Saturday, the day 3 storyline of the entire NFL. And he says that because he thinks there's a good chance that the Ravens indeed draft a kicker. Now, as we know in the history of the NFL, usually kickers are undrafted rookies. Usually don't spend draft picks on them, although it's not been completely unheard of. But with Justin Tucker starting to show signs of wear and tear, hasn't been as accurate, hasn't been as consistent. Plus, you've got the allegations of misconduct, the sexual misconduct with 18 massage therapists. And then you add on to it, John Harbaugh talked to the owners' meetings, and he said, yeah, we're absolutely open to actually drafting a kicker. So here's Schefter, what he tells Brian Wacker of the Baltimore Sun. If the Ravens were to draft a kicker on day 3, which, by the way, I could see happening, that would qualify as one of the biggest storylines on day 3 of the draft this year. I could see that happening. It just depends on who's there and the grades they have. Your thoughts?
Not surprised. Randy Brown is the special teams assistant, the longtime special teams assistant to John Harbaugh. He mentioned during those owner meetings comments, one of many things, that Randy has been traveling the country, Sarah, looking at these kicking prospects. And that's not exactly something that they've had to do a whole lot of over the last decade plus because of the sure thing that's come with Justin, but he's been anything but. And that's what you just kind of summarized. Mm-hmm. And it's twofold. He's been anything but a sure thing on the field. And now somebody who has had as clean of a track record as you could possibly imagine from a professional football standpoint, and really just professional athlete at large standpoint. And they are allegations. We'll continue to say that. But this is clearly something that has ballooned. And so he's been anything but a sure thing twofold. And so the Ravens are in a position where you have to go into that weekend almost, aside from maybe with, how about this? You got to go into that weekend with one of you. If you don't think Justin's going to be your guy moving forward, and the writing could very well be on the wall, you got to leave that weekend with a kicker in mind. And if you don't, then clearly you have somebody that you're in love with in the undrafted category that didn't hear his name called throughout those 7 rounds.
Right. Not everybody has 11 picks. So the Ravens might be willing to part ways with one of those day 3 ones for a kicker. Now, Bobby, one thing here that's interesting is if you're here listening to the Vault every single day, or you're, listening to any podcast and you are consuming Ravens news as much as we are, right? It's like, well, yeah, this is a no-brainer. We were talking in the middle of last season, should the Ravens go out and get somebody else? This is before the allegations, because he went through a legit, I don't know, he was in a funk. He was for sure in a funk. And there's a couple of games that you could say, you know what? There's a lot of people to blame, but Justin Tucker might be at the top of the list. Maybe the Steelers game, maybe the Eagles game, different stuff like that. So we were already talking about that. So if you've been consuming Ravens news, it's like, this doesn't seem like why would Adam Schefter call this one of the biggest storylines of day 3? Because a lot of times what's happening locally doesn't hit national news. But when you're covering and you're on national television and people are covering this, and it's not often that kickers are picked, and then it's like, oh, so for the other 31 team or fan bases, or maybe even national reporters that aren't really covering this the way we do, it's going to be like, oh, okay, not only did they do something that's abnormal by taking a kicker, but second of all, that pretty much says it finally writes in more bold Justin Tucker's future with the Baltimore Ravens. And we're talking about somebody that is the most accurate kicker in NFL history. In NFL history, this isn't just some kicker, it's a historic kicker. So that is why I think Adam Schefter is deeming this one of the biggest storylines of day 3.
And I see some live chatter, just kind of some that would hate to see a day 3 selection be used on a kicker, right? Which kind of alludes to what you were saying a minute ago, that it's somewhat abnormal. And obviously, when you think about the compensation, the draft capital that has been found in the past, or the talent that's been found in the past on day 3, your mind starts to wander like, well, what if? You'd rather find an undrafted guy. Obviously, that would be priority number 1. But at the same time, like you said, they've got 11 picks. They got double-digit picks.
Yeah.
There's some teams that have, small single-digit picks. So I like the idea of them understanding the market, understanding the kicker class. We're going to get into some of those guys in just a second here. I think it's on the next slide, but here they are. And who is this list, by the way? Who put together this list?
So this is Mel Kiper's top 10 kickers and punters. There's not enough for one for each. And his top 3 has a kicker, punter, kicker. So this first one right here, I don't even know if I'm going to say his name right. Andres Borregala. Oh man, I thought I had practiced it. Borregales from Miami. And he just last season became Miami's all-time career points leader with 405 points. And at the time it was and counting because it was in the middle of the season. So Andres, just last year, was 18 of 19 in his field goals. Last year, he had a career long of 55 yards. At his pro day, he had a 62-yarder. I went and already ahead of time went and read Lance's overall kind of analysis of him on NFL.com. The words he used to describe Andres is accurate, clutch, but doesn't have like the hugest leg. So, he can kick a 55-yarder in a game because he did that in Miami. Sure, the weather was nice. AFC North weather would be a little bit different. But his career percentage of field goals is 86%. He's 75% from 50 plus. But this is Mel Kiper's top kicker. Now, Ryan Fitzgerald, who he has second among kickers, but puts a punter in between them. Fitzgerald is out of Florida State. He was 19 of 21 in 2024, so missed 2. At the combine, he kicked 13 for 13, and 5 of those were over 50. So Lance Zierlein, he's called him inconsistent in 2022, but in 23 and 24, he said he really turned a corner, and he's been consistent, more ever since. So these 2 seem to be some of the top kickers. There's more here, but if anybody was going to use a draft pick instead of an undrafted, just phone call, it might be one of those 2 guys.
This idea of bringing in a first-year player to a championship contending team that seemingly has everything it needs is an interesting one, right? And it brings you back to Justin, because he went on to win a Super Bowl his rookie season, and was obviously a well-established player coming out of the University of Texas. But your mind starts to go in the direction of, okay, yes, production matters. Yes, resume matters. The school matters. Skill set matters, so on and so forth. But how about some moxie? This kid's going to be, if there's a rookie that's going to be tasked with being the starting kicker in Baltimore in what we know is a Super Bowl or bust era from this point forward, you better have some moxie. You better have a short memory, and you better have some resiliency, and maybe a little level of fearlessness. And maybe all these guys do. They wouldn't have gotten to this point without that kind of MO. But man, the pressure will be high, and the usage I would expect to be pretty darn active. And can, like, they are going to consistently need a kicker. Do they need a lot of field goals in this offense? Maybe during AFC North play, especially when you're playing Pittsburgh.
I think they do. I wouldn't downplay that. I mean, because also, like, a kicker should be around for, if you're going to use a draft pick, you want them around for like 10 years. You're not just thinking of 1 year. You know what I mean? Yeah, you want a kicker that can kick points. But that is what Andy kind of brings to the table. You can go and check out, I don't know a lot about him, but he gives a little vibe of moxie. And when your write-up says clutch, that also means to me, like, clutch, that's all I need to know. Clutch. Give me somebody in the clutch with the pressure on who can deliver.
Right. The clutch gene, that clutch gene that's so hard to measure who has it and who doesn't. So, but I guess to put a bow on this opening thought from Schefter, yeah, it's a major need going into the weekend.
Meanwhile, Schefter was asked about Mark Andrews. Now, just to review, we remember Eric DaCosta coming in the State of the Ravens kind of press conference. He sent a message to all the other GMs that he was open for business, not saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to move on from Mark Andrews." Didn't say, "Oh, we're keeping him." He just kind of let it lay out there, and then nothing really happened. And so owners' meetings comes around, and John Harbaugh is much more effusive, saying, "Yes, I expect him on the team." They did not say that a few months prior, and I do think it was on purpose, but nothing developed. So that's what John Harbaugh says. What is Adam Schefter hearing? Shoot, I accidentally put in the same thing twice. Basically, he said that if it hasn't happened already, he thinks it's very unlikely that it's going to happen. I think probably he's talking about that Mark Andrews has gotten his roster bonus of $4 million. And obviously the draft is coming up, and this is a deep tight end class. And so Brian Wacker asked Adam Schefter, but what if there's a sweet offer? So you don't think it's likely? It would have happened already by now. What if it's a sweet offer? He said, well, he's like, I wonder if there's a team that is looking at a tight end draft prospect like Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, and that team doesn't get him. And so if that happens, then they could turn around and say, hey, Baltimore, we'll give you a 3rd-round pick from Mark Andrews. And then Schefter says, would the Ravens listen at that time? He says, I would have thought if he was going to get traded, it would have happened by now. It hasn't happened, so I don't think it's likely. But that's the kind of situation on draft day you have to wonder about, says Adam Schefter. I think he's right on.
Yeah. So status quo until the 24th, when all what can break loose, depending on what's offered, what calls come in, what calls don't come in. So be ready. Be ready. Let's continue with player visits, which we've spent a lot of time talking about so far this week. And the latest, back to the Penn State well, at least from a pre-draft process. Eric DaCosta spent a lot of time there. One of his kids is a current student at Penn State as well. And Mike Garafolo, NFL Network, noting that Jalen Reed, Nittany Lions safety, who's a projected day 2 draft pick, he posted a picture, and it was essentially just the Giants facility on his Instagram during a visit earlier this week. But But Mike went on to say, hey, he also has visits scheduled with the Lions, Eagles, Ravens among them, and Jets as well. So much like a lot of these other prospects are, Sarah, they're taking their tours, they're popping around, and we know the Ravens are very, very familiar with the pipeline that is Penn State to Baltimore.
Yeah, so I think this is the fourth one that we've covered of the 30 visits that the Ravens can have at their facility. And boy, oh boy, do we just keep hearing about safeties. I'm excited to hear from Jason at Huddle It Up Films about his thoughts on safety and when the best time to grab one is. But as Mike says, Jalen Reed is considered a day 2 pick. I think Malachi Starks, if he were, who's largely considered by many as the top safety, if he drops to 27, then some of these guys after him should be more like second day picks. And so Jalen Reed is one of those. And if you're wondering who he is, he's out of Detroit, went to high school there, 6'0", 211 pounds. NFL.com gives him a 5.88 grade, prospect grade, which to them means that he's projected to be an average backup or special teamer, not the highest grade there. Lance Zierlein says that Reed has NFL size, good overall production as a 2-year starter, but he says there's concerns on tape. He's got natural instincts and route awareness to make plays on the ball, but is too inconsistent in finding where he needs to be in coverage. I don't need any coverage busts around here, Bobby. Mm-hmm. He goes on to say he doesn't run well to play over the top or handle certain targets in man coverage. He's physical enough as a run supporter, but needs to improve his approach as an open field tackler. Reed is best suited to play as a backup safety in downhill zone coverages. So this would be more backup. His production last year, he led his team with 98 tackles. So yeah, more of a physical guy, 6.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, one of which was returned for a touchdown, 3 pass breakups, and 1 forced fumble. He started all 16 games. So certainly other safeties we've covered that have more glowing reviews.
Yeah. You bring them in, some competition, some depth for the room. We know that currently looks like a couple undrafted rookies from a year ago, one of whom is one undrafted rookie, one rookie, both of whom are rising second-year players in Bo Braid, undrafted out of Maryland, Sanusi Kane out of Purdue, and then, of course, your projected starters right now are Kyle Hamilton and Ardarius Washington. So you could see a guy like Jalen Reed, if he is indeed a day 2 pick, coming in there, certainly not being the favorite to beat out an Ardarius Washington, but get him in the building, start playing some special teams, earn your keep, so on and so forth. But it's just a matter of, as we keep saying, right? It's a matter of when, not if, they bring in a safety. Is it going to be the latter half of free agency like it was with Eddie Jackson a year ago? And hopefully, if it is, that it ends up being a different result. Or is it going to be via the draft or throughout draft weekend? Or is it going to be both? So I'm curious. But if it is draft weekend, this is kind of cool here from Daniel Jeremiah, kind of just putting his expertise out there publicly on X, former Ravens scout, of course, now NFL Network draft analyst. He's been having his conversations with general managers, head coaches over the last week, and he thinks there's a consensus. Everyone seems to agree that this draft is a starter draft. Maybe not a ton of star power, but your goal should be to come away with 3 to 4 solid starters. They are out there. Go find them. That's the way I read it. That's the way I chose to read it there at the end.
Well, it's funny because, all of us want like this game breaker, this elite player. And it just sounds like there's not too many of them. It's more like, you want a solid starter? This draft will give you solid starters for rounds and rounds. But if you're looking for what they project to be like these elite, players for years to come, it just seems like they're far and few in between. And Bobby, the chat says they're over talking about safeties, which I get, but it's like at the same time, what happens when your team is bringing in safeties for visits and the biggest draft gurus like Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper Jr., like all sorts of people keep projecting a safety. And so either backdoor conversations, Eric DaCosta and company are leading them down the wrong direction, or that's what's going to happen, so we will see.
just a reminder, we keep referencing the 11 overall picks. So, of course, they're first on opening night, meaning the opening round pick is number 27 overall. Then on day 2, they've got 2 picks, one in the second, 59th overall, one in the third, 91st overall. They've got a pair of picks in the 4th round on day 3, 129 and 136. They've just got one pick in round 5, 176 overall. They've got a ton. This feels like 2022 in what was the 4th round. Didn't they have like 4 or 5 picks alone in the 4th round in 2022 because they went and got Jalen Armour-Davis, Pepe Williams. I'm forgetting who the other ones were. But they have 4 6th-round picks, Sarah. 183, 203, 210, 212. So Saturday's basically just going to be like, hold on to your hat. And these players are going to be cycling into Baltimore unless something changes. And then, of course, one to close things out in the 7th, 243 overall. So
2022 4th rounders: Daniel Fa'alele, Jalen Armour-Davis, Charlie Kolar, Jordan Stout, Isaiah Likely, Demarion Williams. That was 2022.
Oh my
1,
goodness.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 4th rounders. Bobby, they did that one other time. I remember this in 2016. They had not as many. Well, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 4th rounders. I remember that quite. Not to like be too crazy here, but I was in the middle of a miscarriage during that 4th round, and I had to leave the Ravens facility. That was a crazy day in 2016.
Yeah.
I had to leave them high and dry in the middle of the draft when all those 4th rounders were coming in. That was a crazy day for me.
Deservedly so. Get out of there and get yourself right. You know,
yeah.
That's the stuff you don't forget, especially when you went on to have 4 kids. You remember that stuff.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
But boy, were you blessed with 4 great ones who had an awesome time.
That's why Ella's birthday always lands on draft day, because the next year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was it. So, but Bobby, do we have any ads? We don't have any ads today, right?
We don't, and no super chats right now. No super chats yet. So get those going, guys, if you have any questions related to the draft or comments. But as promised, we wanted to revisit this, Sarah.
Yeah. So yesterday, just because people get so tired of hearing comp picks, I don't get tired of them. I like extra draft picks, but I get the sentiment that people feel like Eric DeCosta is trying to get it at too high of a cost, and they're like, is it even worth it? So we got a question yesterday about what it's really even done for the Ravens. And to tell you that I spent too much time looking into this today, but I got all the numbers, and I thought that maybe like it would help like a fourth of the time or something like that. Like the numbers came out much better than I had even anticipated. Okay. So overall, the Ravens have been awarded 60 comp picks since the system opened in 94. But what's funny is the Ravens got a 2-year late start because the Ravens didn't become a franchise until 96. Okay. So it's the most in the NFL, but we can't count all 60 when we're looking at how well they worked, because 4 of them haven't even been used yet. Right. So the 60 includes 4 that are coming up in 2 weeks. 2 of the comp picks were traded. And so that kind of brings us more down to like, we're looking at what the numbers are out of, let's see, go down to 58, 54. So we're looking at 54. So what I did is I looked at a few things. Like how many players got like a second contract, meaning how many of them played 5 years or more in the league as a comp pick? 23 out of 51 eligible guys that could even play 5 years. So like Isaiah Likely doesn't count, right? Because he could even be at 5 years yet. He will definitely get a second contract. So just under, let's see. Yeah, just around half of the players got second contracts, played 5 years plus that were drafted as comp picks. 19 of the 54 comp picks became starters. And the way I try to define that is they started 16 plus games or had a full season where they were trying to start. So 19 of the 54 had 16 plus starts. 5 of them became Pro Bowlers, and then 3 of them were Super Bowl champs with the Ravens. Okay. So that's not too bad. Where half the guys become 5+ year players, just less than half became starters. Okay. So here are some big ones that I'll kind of point out. Did you have anything to comment on the overall numbers? Were you kind of surprised by that?
Pleasantly pleasantly
Yeah.
surprised. And I just wanted to shout out to our friend Paul Warner. You guys both did deep dives on this. We got an email from him after
Oh,
the show yesterday, and he's in the middle of a road trip, and he sent us literally an incredible breakdown of the history player by player. So just
that may
wanted
have
to say
helped
thanks to
save.
him.
If I had seen that email, it may have helped me save some time in all the research I did this morning.
Oh, that's hysterical. I must have opened it first. Sometimes since we have a joint account,
Yeah.
whoever opens it first, you can't tell it's a new message. So sorry about that.
No,
If
I
that's
don't even
the
think I
case.
looked. It's not your fault. Yeah.
No. I just wanted to say both you and Paul went deep dive on this. So thank you both. And yeah, keep going.
So just here, I just figured I'd point out some of the bigger names that they hit on. The biggest one that I always remember when I started it was Edwin Mulitalo. I don't know if new Ravens fans are going to remember him, but Ed was he was a guard. He was year in and year out starting for the Ravens. He played for the Ravens from 1999 to 2006, Super Bowl champion. He played over his career 132 games, started 128. That was a massive hit. It was a good hit. And remember, as I point out, like some of the bigger names, let's remember these aren't first and second rounders. So if they make it big, this is like, I think there's like 1 or 2/3, but mostly 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounders, you know?
Hey, can I quickly interject saying your Super Bowl ring in person on my ring finger was awesome.
Oh yeah. Did you take a picture of that?
I didn't, and
We
we
never took a
barely even
picture of
talked
that.
about it. We literally probably downplayed that. But man, that was an awesome, like under the radar part of the Vault Summit last week. I got to put on Sarah's Super Bowl ring.
Which is much bigger than the one that Ed Mulitalo is sporting here in this picture. They definitely upgraded this like 12 years later when they got a new Super Bowl ring.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. People are not going to remember these guys, but Ovi Muhaley, I remember him, and Tony Pashos. They were both there while I was working there. And Ovi Muhaley was a fullback back in the day. Had a very long career. He was a Pro Bowler in 2010. He was second team All-Pro in 2006 and 2010. And which is harder to be a Pro Bowler back then because there were still some fullbacks back in the day. Okay.
Sure.
So I remember him. He was just like a bruiser, just like all fullbacks are. Tony Pashos was a massive human being. Watching him and Jonathan Ogden walk around the building was a sight to see. But look how long his career was. You see him with the Ravens, Jacksonville, 49ers, Browns, was just on the practice squad with the Redskins, and then Oakland Raiders. So he had been around. He was that was more his college, but he played 104 games, started 82. So that was a hit also. I don't need to say much about this guy in Jordan Stout. He was a 6th round comp pick in 2006. Here we're talking about punters and kickers aren't usually taken with draft picks. But boy, if you're going to do that, Sam Cook would be somebody to do that. And now he's still with the organization as a coach. Do you remember LaRon McClain at all, Bobby? Was that before your time?
I do. The only reason I do is because I just interviewed him in the past. Various things. I think when I was with WBAL, he came to our tent pregame a couple times. This dude's a bruiser.
He was funny because, well, first of all, he was a 2-time Pro Bowler. He was a 4th rounder in 2007. And what was funny about him is I feel like the Ravens had some injuries at running back. So I'm trying to remember I can't remember if it was 2008 or 2009, but they used him more as a running back. And he had like something like 800 yards. And then he never wanted to give it up because obviously fullbacks were a dying breed. He wanted to stay a running back. Now, his biggest signature play is when the Ravens were like the quote unquote homecoming team for Dallas Cowboys when they were closing down their old stadium and they wanted it to be like a win. And then the last 2 offensive plays for the Ravens was LaRon McClain going for something crazy like 80 yards or so or 70 plus for a touchdown. And then Willis McGahee did on the next play, or it was reversed. So he went on a campaign trying to convince coaches to permanently move him over to running back, and that did not work. But another comp pick hit there. Oh my gosh, probably my favorite one, Pernell McPhee. Did you cover him much?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Oh.
Where does it say he finished up? 2021 was his final season. So I had him Yeah, my first year, he was on that 14-2 run, and what a personality he was and is.
Personality.
Yeah.
He was like the guy what we would call a dog before like dog became overused and like whatever. Like he's also one of those guys that sometimes you're just like there's like a little crazy in him. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Which some football players need.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But he was a fifth rounder. He's the one who kind of started where it was like, oh, we could just start getting outside linebackers, productive outside linebackers in the fifth round because it was him, and then it was Judon, and then it was Ardarius Smith, and it was like, oh, let's just do this forever. We'll use fourth and fifth rounders, and now we're kind of in a lull here. But yeah, he was a dog, and it was so awesome when he came back. So that was a hit. Now, 2013, they had 3 comp picks hit. Okay. First, there was Kyle Juszczyk. We don't need to talk about him much. Nine-time Pro Bowler. Okay. I don't know if people remember Ricky Wagner, but he became a starter. He started 96 games in the NFL. You do not forget Ryan Jensen.
Nope.
The enforcer when Joe Flacco went down, when Kiko Alonso concussed Flacco, and Ryan Jensen, I remember him. 6th rounder. He was the 203rd pick and became great here in Baltimore, but was even better when he left. Won a Super Bowl ring with Tom Brady and the Bucks. Started 90 games. He's played in 100, and that dude was another character.
Yeah, he was paid handsomely to go to Tampa Bay too. And then I think that's when they went to, was it Bozeman at center? What year did he leave? He left in
2018. He was with the Bucks. His last year was 2017 with the Ravens.
Oh, maybe there was somebody between him and Bozeman. But anyway, yeah, that worked out well for the Ravens for sure.
Yeah, it did. Speaking of Bozeman, I believe he comes up a little bit later. Brent Urban was a comp pick.
Hey,
best
Brent,
commentary ever.
A lot of people want him back on a little handshaker.
A little 1-year deal again. How many 1-year deals has he had with the Ravens? Several, it feels like, running there. Here's Bradley Bozeman. Speaking of, he was a comp pick. And this is why, like, the offensive linemen, like, they just keep replenishing themselves with these comp picks. And I think that goes over some people's heads. I tried to say that yesterday, but in 2018, he was a 6th-round comp pick at 215. Has been starting year after year for the Ravens and the Panthers, now with the Chargers, starting 94 games. That was a comp pick hit. And then this is the last one that we know of. It's too early to know about some of the other guys after this, but Isaiah Likely. Yeah. And what's funny is he doesn't even count among like the stats. Like, he's not a starter, right? Why he hasn't come up as one. He doesn't get to count as a guy who gets a second contract yet. He could, but it's like, how many other guys, he's not doesn't come up big in the stats, but we know who he is and that he's just been playing behind Mark Andrews. So I don't know. I think answering the big picture question, are comp picks worth it? Obviously, you're going to have a little of everything. You're going to have guys that are 1 year out. You're going to have misses. You're going to have guys that, just stay for their rookie contracts and don't do much other. But then we just showed all the guys that they've hit. And so this is why Eric DeCosta does it. I do think that saying, hey, I'll sign you after the comp pick deadline, or I'll stick to guys that have been cut. Those small little things in the long run, you let some guys walk because you can't pay them all anyway. You're not making big sacrifices, I don't think, to get these comp picks in, and they have hit at least half the time, depending on the metric you're looking at.
Give EDC and his scouting department more and more chances, right? More and more swings at the plate. They're going to hit on some. Let's get to some quick hits before we bring our guy Jason in. And we'll get to a couple super chats as well, but it has been confirmed. Season 11, Kevin Hart's Cold as Balls, presented by Old Spice. Who's going to be featured on it? That guy in the bottom right, looking awfully drippy there. Lamar Jackson will be appearing, so that should be fun. Did you see a date that was attached to it by chance?
They did not give a date of when Lamar will be on there. They they put out all the different players that are on there. Saquon Barkley. Just a bunch of guys. So no, there is no date.
Okay. Good to know. We'll be on the lookout. Elsewhere, how about this? Steelers remain very interested in Aaron Rodgers, according to Jordan Schultz. And the hope is that an agreement eventually happens. Nothing yet. But the Steelers have done extensive work on this year's quarterback class, and Shedeur Sanders is now scheduled to be in the building on Thursday. Pittsburgh is 21st overall. That's where they select in the opening round. I also saw a note from Schultz earlier today that Shedeur is making his rounds. He's going to be meeting with Vegas as well, who brought in Geno Smith, of course, this offseason via trade. New Orleans is somewhere in there as well. I think New Orleans is at 9 in the opening round. So again, we kind of spoke about it a couple times this week, but this is the player that if he doesn't go within those first couple picks, it's going to be really interesting to see how far he falls, if he falls, on the 24th of this month. And finally, you brought this in. You grew up a Denver fan, of course. Mm-hmm. And this happened right after our show yesterday, and you and I were in our post-show planning meeting. And I was stunned. I like screamed out loud. I was so stunned by this. But Michael Malone, literally a year removed from an NBA championship, was fired by the Denver Nuggets, Sarah. He lost the locker room, according to reports, which when that happens, good night.
I want to correct myself. Isaiah Likely did come up as a starter for me because he had 19 starts. I should have said he doesn't qualify as like being able to get a second contract, and that he hasn't been able to put up the numbers that he could if he wasn't in the best tight end duo in the NFL. So I just wanted to correct that. In terms of Malone, real quick here, I saw somebody say this is the equivalent of firing John Harbaugh week 18 when you're about to go into the playoffs, which I think is close. But adding to that, it would be like firing him in week 18 after 2 years ago, he just won a Super Bowl with you. Like, it's crazy. But to your point, like I read the I've already forgotten the names. What's the name of the owners? Kroenke. They own a ton of franchises: the Nuggets, the Avalanche, the Rams, Arsenal. I don't know if I'm missing any. And they usually let their head coaches play. Like they're not like quick, like to get rid of people. And so they did an interview with the team website and basically said that winning sometimes masks issues, and that they had already decided that they want to fire him anyway. And so I took that as like, okay, so you still think you got a core of players that will help you win anyway, and you didn't want him to get the credit and would make it harder in the offseason to let him go. So he probably lost the locker room. He may have lost the ownership, but that was a 10-year coach, which doesn't happen a lot, as we know, for head coaches the last 10 years, whether it's the NFL or NBA, won an NBA finals championship, and now is gone. This business is crazy, but they get paid.
It is. Yeah,
they get paid to go through it.
I was going to say they get paid handsomely, but man, like you said, 10 years in, just over a year removed from the title. He's got some Baltimore ties. Went to all my alma mater, played college hoops here at Loyola in Baltimore. I think the reality is when you have a generational player like they do with Nikola Jokic, there comes a sense of urgency with that type of player. And if you're on the fringe or you're borderline losing the locker room, and he had some harsh words for that locker room, by the way, very harsh words that went viral after a loss within the last couple of weeks, essentially claiming that some of his guys don't watch film and that he's going to have to show them the film
and effort. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the shocking NBA news before we bring our guy Jason in. Teal is just showing us some love via Super Chat, which we appreciate. Heather's showing our guy some love. And she says, I'm
glad to see y'all showing some love to Jason of Huddle Up. He has great content. I absolutely love my Voltron family. Perfect.
Let's go. And we're about to bring him in. And Paul, who just wrote us, who I referenced a couple minutes ago, who could have saved you some time earlier today, says, thanks for the shout out going to the Orioles game, which means he's on the West Coast. I believe they're in Arizona. Or did they wrap up that series yet, Paul? Or are they in Arizona? I've been in draft mode. But anyway, enjoy yourself and enjoy the Orioles there out west. So Heather kind of made sure that we're ready to go here, a perfect tease. And without further ado, let's bring in our guy from Huddle It Up Films, Jason Smith. We bring him on this time of year, Sarah. We bring him on right before roster projections and 53-man roster cuts in the summer. He is the man, and his annual Raven-centric big board is now out, and we're just going to drill him on questions. Let's do it. What's up, brother? Great to see you, man.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Let me get head level with you. There we go.
There we go. Jason, how many people have you watched film on Prospect?
This year more than last year. Usually it's around 230, 240. This year around, Sarah, believe it or not, up around 270, 280. I saw you bring up the Daniel Jeremiah tweet earlier,
Yeah.
and I couldn't agree more. It's a starter draft. Usually positions like guard or defensive tackle, once you get to the 14th, 15th guy, they all start looking the same. Same with running back. You're like, okay, maybe this could be an undrafted guy or a 5th round. They all start kind of looking the same. Defensive tackle, it was just one Raven looking guy after another. And not the smaller, undersized guys, different shapes and sizes, play like a Raven type people. So getting the big board out this year, I usually get it out about a week after the combine. Took me an extra week to put it out. And I'm having a hard time with the end of the board. I'm going to have some more studying to do, actually, as people keep bringing up names. Hey, look at this guy. Look at that guy. So we've been having fun on Monday nights on the channel, going over some names and doing our thing.
Jason, I completely undersold you at the top of the show before you were in the waiting room. I was like, Jason watches so much film. I was like, I think it's around 50, 60, 70 players. 270, Bobby. I was off by 200.
Yeah, there is 188 on the board this year, Sarah. Last year was 184. And to be quite honest with you, I think I started with 197 players I wanted to list, but I didn't want to create a new row and really mess up the way the big board looks. So I was just like, I'll just cut. I could have added more.
Let's just cut to the chase.
What's that?
Bobby, you might have. Do we have the big board? Can we show it?
Oh, I'm going to it right now. Let's cut to the chase. Bring this sucker up. You asked us to, and as you guys can see, there's 3 different tabs down here. Jason's asked us to hover on the positional ranking. So, dude, the floor is yours. Obviously, this thing is color-coded. It's also broken down by position. So why don't you just take us through this from 1,000 feet up in terms of your objectives in creating this year's big board?
Absolutely. Well, I actually had to create a different tier, the purple tier this year, where I broke up. The blue section was going to be so big, the day 2 picks, day 3 values, that I decided to break them into 2 just to not have a giant blue section. So the first thing that sticks out, the reason this draft is getting a bad rep, is the very top, the lack of star power. Last year, I had 8 players with a true first-round grade. Those are players that would be first-round picks in any draft, and if you took the last 3 drafts, put them together, they'd still be a first-round pick. That's the way I was taught way back in the day. Just Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter fit that category.
Wow.
Then I go to the predicted first-round grades, which are the light green. The second-round grades, there are about 51 players, and you can follow along this big board tab. It's on my YouTube. It's on my Twitter. So you guys will see it on draft day as I update them. If you guys are watching the vault, I'll be taking these names off the board as they get drafted. And then it just goes down there all the way to guys that'll be drafted on day 3 priority free agents. But the one thing I always stress is the blue column, the day 2 picks, guys that'll get either picked on day 2, or if they last to day 3, there'll be a value pick, a guy you would target on day 3. There are 112 of those guys this year. That's really what the board boils down to, guys. Like you're not going for number 160 on your board. You want to try to target those 112 guys, which is about a little more than a normal year. Those are the guys in the 5th, 6th round. There's going to be a few guys hanging out from that column that I'm really going to want to get my hands on. Now, of course, full disclosure, I don't know anything about the players' medicals, and I don't know anything about their off-the-field habits, what they are like as an employee, how dedicated they are to football. EDC talks about their drivers, things like that. I'm just going off the tape. I watch at least 3 games of each guy. Now, the guys like Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, I see him so much that I really, watch the game, and I'm like, there's no way they're getting to 27, and we're not trading our entire draft away to get one. So there's some nuance to it. But yes, Raven-centric, Sarah, as you brought up earlier. So we need a safety. Yes, we do need a safety. Ardarius is in his last year. And my soapbox on the safety is this. You have one of the greatest defensive weapons in football on your team in Kyle Hamilton. Do you really want him playing 15 yards off the line of scrimmage, what I call it babysitting the back end, deterring the deep throws? Or do you want him harassing quarterbacks, making tackles for losses, playing the slot, and being around the football a lot? So if you want to maximize Kyle Hamilton, you better get another safety that can play free safety that Marcus Williams is all role. And, of course, Ardarius is only here for this year. So the Ravens are in great shape with so many players coming back, a rare spot where they can grab the best player available.
So I want to dig into safety just a second. But when you said that you only have 2 true first round grades, that to me says do not trade up. Everybody wants to see you trade up just because you think that you're getting a super better player, but you're saying not a good year to trade up in the first round.
Yes, and of course there's going to be players that are worthy of going in the first round. That's not what the true
Sure.
round grade is about. These are players that are your studs, your superstars, your perennial Pro Bowlers, your Jamar Chases of the world, your Myles Garretts of the world, and that come out in the draft. And to me, there are only 2 players. I could have stretched it and been generous and added some more guys that I know are going to go in the top of the first. But, by my strict grading system in any NFL draft, and if you took 3 drafts and put them together, there are only 2 players that you would guarantee would go in that first round.
Wow.
So looking at safety, though, digging a little bit deeper there, are you in love with anybody based on fit? Like put maybe play style just overall and narrow it down to the projected fit in Baltimore for what they'd be looking to have alongside Kyle Hamilton. Who do you think is the best fit that represents what they need?
Well, in the first round, just to give some context, there has not been a safety drafted in the first round the last 2 years. The last time safeties were drafted in the first round were Kyle Hamilton, and then I believe the last 2 picks of that round in 2022 were Lewis Sine and Matt Elam's. Maybe it was Matt Elam's brother. In any case, there were 3 safeties taken in that draft. Last 2 drafts, no safeties taken. So if you're looking in the first round, 2 names that you'll see frequently in mock drafts, and I believe these guys have been mocked to the Ravens in some of the expert drafts, Nick Emmanwori out of South Carolina and Malachi Starks from Georgia. Both of those guys, I think, fit. They fit well. Right now, I have Emmanwori just ahead of Starks, although if you prefer Starks better, I do not blame you. They're that close to me. Both of those guys have the capability to play on the back end and free Kyle Hamilton up, which is what I'm really looking for. Bo Braid, Sanusi Kane, they can play strong safety. We need someone who can be a true free safety with range. Emmanwori is tall like Kyle Hamilton. He's 6'3", 220. He's got offensive lineman type arms. And Emmanwori ran a 4.38, guys, at the combine. Now, it's just a 40 time, but a 4.38 is a blazer for somebody that's 6'3", 220. So he's led his team's tackle production is outstanding himself. So he flies around, gets to the ball, makes plays on the ball. And then Malachi Starks is just your silky smooth, prototypical free safety. And if you drafted one of these guys in the first round, you would have them for 5 years, potentially. And then, I think Kyle Hamilton's safe to say he's a priority sign. You would have 2 very talented safeties, which would allow you to free up the entire defense up front and let you do what you want to do. And one more name I'm going to throw out there, talented safety from Notre Dame, Xavier Watts. I gave him a true second round grade. He's number 44 on my board. He would be someone that if the Ravens traded back in a draft like this where there's so many starters and they say, look, we can get the same level player at 34 that we can at 27. We can draft Xavier Watts and pick up an extra early 3rd rounder, take a shot at another starter. This is one of those drafts where I'm not team trade back guy, even though I love the draft. I want to get value players. I want to get starters. But in a draft like this where you hear it, and I agree with all the experts, the value between pick 15 and say 35, 36, you're basically looking at the same grade player.
Wow. Okay. So where would you, because I would like to see the Ravens supplement at edge rusher. I know a lot of fans are the same way, especially with your top 2 guys not under contract beyond 2025. Number 1, can you take me through some of your favorite guys for number 27? And my second question off of that is there like a combination that you would like to see of positions when they're drafted? Like, would you say like edge is better at 27 and then come back for safety? Or would you just be like, okay, safety guy here because of who's there and then get an edge later? So first question is your favorite edge guys for number 27. And then my second question is like the combination of positions of when to draft them.
At number 27, I think the guys in the green there, Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker, Mike Green, Mykel Williams, I imagine all of those guys will be gone before pick 27.
Okay.
My favorite guy is Donovan Eziraku out of Boston College. I'm sure he has a lot of fans in the chat. second most sacks in the NCAA with 16.5. And he had some of the more positive notes that I made on anybody. You're talking a professional pass rusher. My comp to him would be an Elvis Dumerville. He's only 6'2", but he's got really long arms, some of the longest arms among all those guys listed there, which gives him an extreme leverage advantage. He basically disappears from these tackles with his long arms, who are, professional blockers, the best blockers in the country, because he can get so low to the ground, and he's 6'2" in the first place. Got a plethora of moves. He is developed. He is ready to rush the passer right now as a sub rusher. Maybe his run defense takes a year or two to develop, but if it's a minute and a half, one timeout, the other team has the ball, left and a half, and you want somebody to go get the pass rusher, Iziraku is ready to do that. Arm over swing counter, keeps them off balance. There are so many reps on tape of Donovan Iziraku of tackles just failing to get meaningful contact on him. I mean, they'll touch him, but they're not affecting his rush. It's very, 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 very interesting player. And then below him, Shamar Stewart is the opposite. He is more of the bigger version of Adafio Way, a physical specimen. He only has 4.5 sacks over 3 years. He had a sack and a half last year. Some of that is due to Shamar Stewart having to do the dirty work. Some of that is his lack of finish. So you'll see Shamar Stewart higher on a lot of lists than he is on mine. I prefer the production and the upside of Iziraku. I think is absolutely wonderful. And then the second part of your question, Sarah, sorry to ramble. This is where the positional instead of having the big board, the positional ranks is helpful to look at. Sorry there, because you can see all the edge rushers that you have, 18 rushers that we're targeting, from Ashton Gelati at number 18 all the way up to Carter at number 1. Look at the depth on the defensive line. Look how many guys are in the blue or above. Whereas if you get to your guards, if you want a guard that can play next year, Faalele is a free agent. Andrew Voorhees only has 4 starts under his belt. You better get a guard early. Safety, same thing. You're talking about a true free safety. Those don't grow on trees. It is hard to get a rookie to come in here and man the back end with intelligence. So you better get one of those early. So cornerback, as always, there are a ton of them. Wide receivers, as always, there are a ton of them. But if I were to order this thing, it depends how the Ravens feel about offensive line. I would go try to get one of the top 3 guards in this class, which a lot of people wouldn't like, or go get a safety early. And then when you come back in round 2, 3, get your impact edge rusher, get your impact defensive lineman to prepare for Michael Pierce's absence, Brent Urban's still not being brought back. So a lot of ways to skin it, Sarah. It's almost like, if you ever do a fantasy draft, should I get my quarterback now or should I wait another round? A lot of that is going to be on the Ravens' mind here because of how the board is stacked.
Yeah. So, okay. The scenario that, Jason, if a guard ends up being selected at 27, in that scenario, in your mind, what would have happened before? What kind of run would have happened prior that would push the Ravens to be inspired to take guard at 27?
Well, Bobby, honestly, I don't think it would be anything in particular. I think it would just be the Ravens' personal choice, because the way I look at it, one of the guards in the orange is going to be there, either Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson, Grace Abel. One of those guys is going to be there, but so are one of the edge rushers, so are one of the defensive linemen. Chances are probably one of the safeties. So I don't think it would be. It would have to do with how the Ravens prioritize it, and not, this is a totally different level of player. If these level of players are gone, then we're going to have to go here. I just don't see it that way. The talent difference is so minimal in this range this year in particular that, maybe one of the guys in the green slips down, Bobby, and that changes the plans. Mm-hmm. Something unforeseen like that. But I only have 20 guys in the green this year. Last year I had, I believe, 22 because it's just so unpredictable. So if one of the top corners slips, like Will Johnson, speed questions, if it was, this draft would have taken place in August before the season, he would have been a top 5 pick and he would have been in that dark green. Will Johnson, there are speed questions with him. He hasn't run this offseason. There he is right there, Will Johnson. If he runs a 4.6 and he hasn't run yet, so we don't know, then no, you don't draft him. He's not a first rounder in every draft. And that's the concerns with Will Johnson. Great ball player, but at outside corner, you need speed.
Okay, so you said that you would go guard or safety first based off of your grades here. So I'm assuming because you have Booker with a second round grade and you have Eamon Wari with a first round, if you had that scenario and both Eamon Wari and Booker are there, you're taking Eamon Wari?
Bobby, can you click over to the actual big board?
Sure thing.
And this will show the order that I have on these guys, Sarah.
Okay.
So this is the tab that most people look at, but I thought the positional rankings were a good snapshot.
Yeah.
You scroll down just a little bit, Bobby, because we're not going to need to look at Abdul Carter and Hunter up there. Eamon Wari, I have at 8, Sarah, right at the top where Bobby stopped. Starks,
Wow.
I have at 12. No matter who I put at 3, 4, 5, it just didn't look right. Like, it's just an odd year. It's just an odd year like that. Like, there's really no player I would consider worthy to be number 3 on my board, if I was being very, very honest. So any of those players in the green, and these are, I'm not going way out on a limb with any of these guys. As you can see, 31 and 32, Colston Loveland, Marion Hampton, those guys are probably going to go in the first. But it would shock me if the Ravens took a running back or a tight end with their first round pick. It ain't happening. I mean, those two rooms are stacked. So that's why you see players push down the board early, like Colston Loveland, like a Marion Hampton, just to make sure they're still on the board, but they're not players that I think that we would consider in the first round, considering where our roster is. So that's what makes it Raven centric. But yeah, you see Azir Araku right there at 21, Booker at 22, Shamar Stewart at 23. That is literally the order as of now, Sarah, that I would take those guys.
So 4 6th-round picks, just looking ahead to day 3, 4 of them, which prompted us, of course, to go back down memory lane of how many they had in the 4th round back in 2022, right? Just a litany of picks. What do you think day 3 most realistically? What would be a surprise position that's taken of the 11, perhaps that could fall within that quartet of picks on day 3, 4 and the 6th?
Sure. And I want to know if Sarah remembers this, though, first. Do you remember me tweeting at you in 2022 saying that I think that we're going to pick up a punter, draft a punter? And
I
got
don't
a lot
remember that. No.
Oh man, that would have been. I wish you did, because I did
How
call.
dare
I believe you.
I called the wrong. I called the wrong punter though. The punter I had was Matt Ariza, and he went through off-field stuff. If you remember.
Did I respond to you?
Yeah, you told me no way. You told me
okay.
no way. But you were joined unanimously in that. But I say, Bobby, something that I think is worth noting is that all 4 of our tight ends / Ricard, counting him as a fullback tight end, are free agents after this year. All 4. Yep. Do you really want to reset an entire room and have 4 guys hit free agency at once? So one wild card thing I would throw out there, Bobby, is Charlie Kolar probably has some value to a team. So maybe there is a blocking tight end. You remember when Charlie Kolar went out and they asked Moncton about the press conference, what did Charlie Kolar mean coming back? And he pretty much said, we had to abandon running the I formation. So what I would suggest is if the Ravens are on the clock and there's a blocking tight end that they like, my guy is Jackson Hall's right there at number 110 on the board, professional blocker, pancaker, that maybe they say, hey, you guys, would you be interested in Charlie Kolar when you're on the clock, Team X, in the 4th round? And maybe they trade us their 4th rounder for Kolar, and maybe we give back one of those 6 rounders, Bobby, just to sweeten the deal to get it done. Draft a guy who is a better blocker than Charlie Kolar right now. No offense to Charlie. He's been amazing with that.
Yeah.
But just to have some stability in that room for next year so you don't have Ricard, Likely, Kolar, and Mark Andrews all hit free agency at once. That would be a surprise, a sneaky surprise. I haven't heard anybody talk about.
If you're available, Jason, we definitely need to have you back on, because I have like 5 more questions that I know we need to end the show. We're already past 1 o'clock. So
you guys can have me on anytime. Believe me, I love this.
We might need to have you on almost daily leading up to the draft. But I'll just end with this because it was kind of a theme at the top of our show. Adam Schefter saying that it would be the storyline of day 3 if the Ravens pick a kicker, and he thinks that they will. John Harbaugh indicated that they will. Do you feel like A, somebody is worthy of a draft pick, a kicker, and B, who would it be?
I do not think any of the kickers are necessarily worth a draft pick. But then again, I don't know anything about kicking other than the stats. So
Okay.
I'm not going to pretend that I can pick up on film what a kicker's ceiling is like the other prospects. I don't know. I just look at the stats. What I would say is it wouldn't surprise me again, Sarah, if how do you think Jordan Stout has done? Do you think he's an all-pro punter, Pro Bowl punter?
No.
He's a free agent at the end of this year too. So do you bring in a new kicker, a new punter? I think that those things will be on the table. I think we have 4 picks in the 200s. So it may be at that point, the 112 guys on my board are gone. Maybe they're going to have a different list than me. But just giving an example, maybe at that point, all the players they're targeting is gone. They're like, you know what the heck? Instead of, trying to fight to bring an undrafted, free agent here, let's just use our last pick 204 or whatever it is, on a punter. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope we keep drafting guys with upside that could surprise and step up and steal a job. We could really use a Chuck Clark. We could really use a Geno Stone. We could really use a Pat Ricard, an undrafted free agent, or somebody to really emerge from these late rounds, because I think Eric DaCosta and company has done a great job in the first round. Just look at the players. They're all going to get for second contracts in the NFL. But these late round picks, the Ben Masons, the Salas, the Caillou Blue Kelly, Sarah, I know you know how I felt about those players at the time. We need to start hitting on some of those. I would love to get it's time to get some more Genos and Chuck Clarks and some guys that can contribute to the team, even if they aren't, all-stars in that late rounds.
You are the man, dude. Your Raven-centric big board is pinned to your Twitter or X account. Can be found at Huddle It Up Films, and we appreciate your time always, man. You crush it. Thank you so much.
Hey, love you guys so much. And if anybody is passionate about the draft, it's kind of a niche subject, but the people who are on my shows love it. On my channel on Huddle It Up Films, I've done 3 draft shows. They were live, so they're on the live tab, and we'll be going on live the next 2 Monday nights. So anybody that loves the draft, we get great conversations over there. So I wanted to plug that. So yeah,
of course. Appreciate you, brother. We'll do it again soon. All right.
Thanks, guys. Hey, feel free to have me back on. I will.
All right,
Would love
awesome.
to. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, dude. 200 plus players. What do you say? 232?
270. He looked.
270.
He watched.
270.
And only 180 of them made his big board, meaning they're draftable.
Beast.
That's unreal to me.
It's a beast. Get him in the lab, baby. Get him in the lab.
We got to bring him back. We got, and I got to tell you, Bobby, I love the Raven-centric draft stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like draft analysts, like it. I know we'll have on some other people, and that'll be great. But like the way he can look at it from a Ravens point of view, knowing he's watched 270 people, and we'll use his big board on draft night, like the whole night. We'll watch because he'll take the players off and who's left, and it's phenomenal what he does. It's absolutely phenomenal.
You guys know how we do it. When these guys come on, they're coming on out of the generosity. They're really just their generosity and their interest in the subject. So if you would, hit them with a little tweet. Thank you that you took something from it. You can go hit them up on X at Huddle It Up Film. So we appreciate Jason. And we also appreciate our patrons, Christopher Washington and Brian Walters. Thank you both. I believe Brian just noted in the live chat the other day that he's getting married soon, right? So congratulations to the Walters family. And thanks to Chris and Brian. This is your monthly shout out. Thank you both, guys. If you guys are interested in doing the same, you can visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast to learn more about what we're offering here inside the channel this month. All right. Tomorrow, we'll continue with the featured guest week and draft content with James Ogden of UK Ravens. Same time, same type of structure, 12:40 tomorrow. And we'll see what we can come up with for the first 40 minutes of the episode. Plenty to discuss today.
Something.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Please like the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Happy Masters Week, by the way. The par 3 contest is going on today from Augusta, Georgia. I'm fired up for some golf this weekend.
I know you are.
It's a major championship weekend. Let's go. So, yeah, do all those things for us. Thanks to Jason. Thanks to you, partner, as always. Guys, we'll catch up with you in under 23 hours for a Thursday Ravens lunch hour live stream. And as always, Voltrons, we'll catch up with you soon. Thanks for joining us and spending some time with us here inside the Vault. Later.